right, so our next question's from Bruno. He's asking for some string recommendations for the Yonex V-Core 100. Again, kind of a broad question. Probably depends a little bit on what you're playing with now, whether you like it, whether you don't like it. So I'm going to give you kind of general recommendations. For playability, ease on the arm, more response, you could use a multi-filament string, Wilson NXT, Technofiber NRG, kind of brand agnostic when it comes to string recommendations. Just because you play with a Yonex racket does not mean you have to play with Yonex string. If you have preferences on that, I can be more specific there. But multi-filaments, very easy on the arm, very playable, good for a lot of players, not as durable. So if you want something more durable, stiffer, a lot of touring players use polyester strings. Some of the favorites out there are Luxilon, ALU Power. They also do ALU Power Rough. Again, it gives you much stiffer feel for a really big hitter, somebody that swings really hard and fast, generates a lot of their own power already, needs the string to help them with control. Kind of the best of both worlds. My preference personally is to use a hybrid setup. So a hybrid setup gives you, typically most people are going to put a polyester string in the mains and a multi-filament softer string in the crosses. So it gives you the durability of polyester, but the playability of multi-filament. So things of that nature, you can always make your own, buy sets of string, cut them in half. There are pre-packaged hybrids as well. Wilson has a whole series that they do called Duo, miscellaneous string options that are a combination of Luxilon and Wilson string, but just great all-around options. But again, playability, you want a softer multi-filament string. Durability, you want something stiffer, more notch resistant like polyesters. Hybrids give you the best of both worlds. So Cole Harmon's asking, what is the most control-oriented racket on the market? So I'm a big believer that the control is, kind of dependent on the person swinging the racket, but we can also look at rackets to kind of help you along with that. And if you're typically thinking of control rackets, you're thinking of things that are fairly heavy, things that have very thin beams, things that have flex, where the ball really sits on the racket a little bit longer. So a little bit of a dying breed as rackets tend to go more kind of the pure drive route, pure arrow, where it's a wider beam, bigger head size, but still thin beams, smaller heads, they're still out there if you look hard enough. Yonex has V-Core Pro, so used by Stan Wawrinka, Francis Tiafoe. The name even tells you, you probably need to be close to a pro to play with this. There's even a dense string pattern option with this racket. So just really, really stiff string bed feel, very crisp, but a very small sweet spot, so you gotta hit it right in the middle. So V-Core Pro, definitely in that boat. Head Prestige, kind of classic players rackets, been around for a long, long time. They even make this in a mid-size, which is very unusual these days. Only 93 square inches. I'm holding the 98 here. This is the MP, but still very controlled even in the 98, but just very thin beam, very heavy, dense string patterns. All those things add up to ultimate control. And then of course, we couldn't forget Fed's racket. We've got the black and white version, and then Fed's still using the old black one. But the Pro Staff, this is a very traditional design. This is from the 1980s when they made the rackets, braided Kevlar layups. They still use that today in the Pro Staff line. So just very thin, flat beams, very heavy. Now, they don't make a 90 anymore, which they used to play with. Fed used to play with that. They used to market one. Now they're 97s, but still it's very controlled, very thin, great feel. These are probably three of the best control rackets out there. All right, so Andrew Jeff 02 is asking, it's a broader question. He's asking specifically about Pure Strike 16 by 19 versus 18 by 20. I'm just gonna make it a broader question and just talk about string patterns in general. This is one of the rackets where you get the option of string pattern. So 16 by 19 just refers to the number of main strings by the number of cross strings. So a more open string pattern, 16 by 19, probably gonna give you a little more of a sweet spot, maybe a little more spin, because the gaps between the strings are slightly larger. You're gonna get a little more dwell time on the string bed, maybe a little more spin. It's kind of in the eye of the beholder, I would say, for most people to tell a big difference. When you go to 18 by 20, again, just a denser string pattern. It's got more mains, it's got more crosses, and just gives you a little firmer string bed feel. Some people like the way that feels. Again, it's personal preference. You know, when you're talking about the rackets where this is an option, it's things like the Pure Strike. Thin beams, heavier static weights, smaller head sizes for a better player. So it's really all about control. It's just a question of, do you like a firm string bed feel, 18 by 20, or do you want a little more open pattern for a little more ball bite, maybe a little bigger sweet spot? That's what the 16 by 19 is. That's it.